Hello, everyone. Charlene Lee here, and Happy New Year to all of you. Today, I'm going to be talking about a few things, and in particular, what are some of the priorities we need to make? I think it's appropriate to start the year this way. I do this every year, where I talk about what should we be focusing on? What should our resolutions be, our objectives, our goals for 2023 as leaders of our organizations, and hopefully being disruptive, resilient leaders in these turbulent times. And I say that because I really think that the way that we're entering into this year is that after the past 3 years, and especially after 2022, it was really tough. There were so many things that happened. And I like the word of the year from the Collins Dictionary. They called it the perma crisis. And that's what it feels like these days. It feels like we are not just dealing with one big disruption like we did with COVID. We're still dealing with COVID. We have a war in Europe. We have surging inflation. We have energy crises. And then again, the weather and the climate is just hitting us every single day and reminding us that there's a lot going on in our world that we have to deal with. And so, as leaders, how do we think about all of this and how do we deal with it? How do we plan? How do we lead our organizations and ourselves more effectively? So that's what I want to talk about today. What should our three top priorities be for the year? And what I'd love you to do is to share where you're coming from. Again, just wishing you Happy New Year. And thank you very much for Shamika and Felicia for wishing Happy New Year back. Great to have you on the stream. But I also would like you to share one of your top priorities for the year in 2023. What have you said to actually grow for yourself, for your organizations? What are the things that you're trying to do to improve yourself as a leader and then also for your organization? And so I love what Shamika is sharing out here, saying, again, that top priorities for 2023 being of service to the business and the faith community. Thank you for sharing that. And also we have here from Isabella, growing muscle, physical and business muscle and spiritual muscle. A very happy new year to you too as well, Isabella. So I love these ideas, and it's interesting that both Shamika and Isabella pointed to the spiritual aspect of it. So I will be touching about that in a very direct way at the very end of this as one of your top priorities. So first of all, I think the top priority here is to think about what it means to be resilient in these turbulent times. And this is not about just building up the defense. Oftentimes, when we think about resilience for individuals, but also as resilience for organizations, we are thinking about how do we survive things that happen to us. So, are we strong enough? Do we have enough money in the bank? Do we have cash in our organizations? Do we have the technology and the people in our businesses to be able to pull through? And the thing here is that we know that we're going to have to be resilient and strong for a long period of time. And so this isn't just the defense and the strength, but it's also being able to not just survive, but to also thrive in this environment. So when you have a perma crisis, you're never going to get a break. When are you going to have a chance to can we just stop for a second, catch our breath? Well, it's yet another crisis coming at us. So rather than being pessimistic about this, how do we think about resilience in not a scarcity world, but in an abundant world? How do we practice resilient abundance? So it's about looking at these setbacks, looking at these turbulences, these disruptions as opportunities. Now, you've heard me say this before, if you've been following me for a while, that I think about disruptions as an opportunity for change and for growth. And what a better time for that than when we're in a perma crisis. So this is really about thinking about where are those opportunities. And so we take resilience and we say it's not only resilience to survive, but also the same exact activities. Looking at your financial resilience. Do you have enough cash to weather the storm? But do you also have enough cash to take advantage of the opportunities that come along? You may get a new job opportunity, but you don't know how it's going to be. Will you be successful? Do you have enough cash in the bank? And no matter what happens, you know you're going to be okay. And the same thing as an organization. Do you have enough cash in the bank to sustain yourself, but also to maintain your growth initiatives so you don't get tempted to cut back those initiatives because hard times hit. So, a couple things to be able to do this. First of all, stay really close to your customers. Say, really understand how their needs are changing, and stay especially close to your future customers, the people you have identified who will be potential areas of growth in the future. And this is so difficult because when tough times come along, when things get hard, when people are pulling back and spending, it is so easy to just keep doubling down, trying to like market to people, sell to people you know, to try to get them to buy more. And it's like squeezing blood from that stone. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be really hard. Versus if you look around and say, well, how are needs changing? How are my customers and my potential customers that I haven't served so well in the past? How do I need to change to meet these new opportunities? And this is where the resilience really becomes true. If you can do this over and over and over again, it isn't a one time thing. You do this continuously. That's how you build resilience and looking for those abundant opportunities. So the second thing I would say is I mentioned it briefly, is to not scale back your growth initiatives. Our research is called, we did some research recently at PA Consulting, and this is the report that we did. It's called the Breakthrough Brigade. And I'll put up the actual place where you can find this too as well. You can find it at paconsulting.com/the Breakthrough Brigade with lots of dashes in between. But it's a great report. And one of my favorite findings from that is that companies who were able to see breakthrough innovations invested really heavily in breakthrough innovations in their process too. They didn't just get lucky. They actually made it a part of their practice, and they invested between 40 and 60% of their overall innovation budget in breakthrough innovations. Now, when I look at the innovation portfolios and plans of most organizations, it's heavily weighted towards short-term incremental innovations that we know are going to pay off. But the problem is those are incremental, serving your current customers. They're not necessarily addressing the needs and opportunities of your future. So during turbulent times, you need to double down on finding those opportunities. And so making sure you don't cut those breakthrough innovation budgets that you have. And in fact, you may want to be increasing them. Typically, I see between 5, 10, maybe 15% of budgets going to these breakthrough innovations, and it's just simply not enough to keep up with the fast-changing pace of your customers. So the first one is, again, stay close to your customers, even closer to your emerging new customers in the future, and understanding their needs. Second of all, investing heavily in these breakthrough innovations that are going to be able to meet those needs. And the third thing is not the most obvious thing to be resilient. And we talk about the finance, the operations, making sure that your business model, your technology are all resilient. The one thing I see people underinvesting in is reputation. I like some people have said, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation and just seconds to ruin it. And so, how are you making sure that your reputation is also being resilient through all of these changes? How are you showing up as a leader? How are you showing up as an organization when the tough times get going, like what Southwest Airlines had to go through this past week with their schedule changes and challenges? How do you show up? Do you even show up at all? And what do you say? And so knowing and anticipating these times when your reputation will be challenged, when you need to step forward, is a key part of resilience also as well. So I see a couple comments here. I want to just see what else we have here. So Shamika, I did share that link here. I'll share it again in the chat. And hopefully I can put it in there too. It's going to take me a minute to find it. And here we go. And thank you for reminding me. I should just share it in the chat too as well. And hopefully this will work. Just give me a second because I think this will be helpful to have it in there. All right, put it in the chat. Hopefully you all can see it too. So let's see, what else do we have here? Kate Knox, thank you for sharing it. For putting that in there already. Let's see, we have some other comments in here. Let's see. I'm working on a small laptop screen today, so give me a second here. All right, that was me sharing more comments in here. Here we go. Shamiko also has a comment that knowing our cash will help us to budget and make good business decisions. Again, I was drilled this in business school. Cash is king. Cash is king. And cash gives you that optionality. It gives you the ability to figure out what's going on. And it gives you, again, just choices to make, both personally and also as an organization. So always, always is there. Knox, I really appreciate you pointing out the mindset shift of survive versus thrive. Again, many of the resilient efforts are all about defense, buckling down, putting up the wall, hardening our soft areas, the soft underbelly. And that oftentimes can also create rigidity and the inability to respond. So I really think about this more flexible resilience that can then, it's the same activities, but geared towards looking for growth opportunities on a constant basis. All right, so just moving on. Again, please share your objectives for 2023. I would love to hear some of those too as well. All right, so the other thing that I would, the second priority, so the first priority is really focusing on resilience that will help you look for those growth opportunities. The second thing is to merge seemingly disparate, competing, competitive goals and objectives. And in many ways, you've probably heard of the three Ps of profit, people, and planet, of ESG goals, sustainability goals. And the reigning thought is that we can't do those things and also have a profitable business, that we have to sacrifice our profits, sacrifice in some ways to be able to meet those types of objectives. And so, and especially during these tough times, we have to prioritize the survival of the business, the well-being of our people, the sustainability of the business before we can do those other things. And if you look at it that way, we'll never get to it, because in a perma-crisis world, it's never the right time to make sacrifices. And so what I'm saying here is that we have to make it very clear to ourselves and change our mind shift in thinking about this. And it needs to be a top priority for 2023. Because if anything, the past 3 years have shown us that we do not exist in a bubble. We cannot live and operate in a world where we can just focus only on our profits and to maximize that. The reality is COVID comes in and hits us. We have to invest in the well-being of our people. There are energy crises. There's a war going on. There's inflation happening. And so all of these things have implications for our business, but also for our environment, our society, and the communities that we operate in and that our people live in. And so we can no longer push off thinking about these things. Now, the thing that has to change, I think, is to think that we have to make trade-offs between all of these things, that we can't do in them all. We can't have it all. And I agree, we can't have it all. We can, though, have some of it together at the same time. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult to find. It's almost a diamond in the rough. And frankly, we have to put our efforts to looking for these, because we frankly just will not survive as sustainable businesses, individuals, and societies if we don't start thinking about things this way. And I'll give as an example, COP26 and 27, the big climate conferences. There was a huge difference between just those 2 years. November 26th, the resolution coming out of it was, we'll try harder to look at these goals and tell you what's attainable. And over the past year, there's been a substantial effort, both in governments and nonprofits and in businesses, to say, wait, how can we make this a win-win? How do we leverage and align our objectives and our investments to find that silver lining, to find this diamond in the rough, to be able to achieve sustainability in our climate, in our societies, reduce the inequities that are in our world, and also at the same time do well as businesses. So do good and do well at the same time. So a couple of things that I want to just talk about, and again, one of the examples of this would be all of the new climate and environmental businesses and opportunities that are coming because of the heavy investments coming from government. So a couple priorities. The first one is to start with one of these goals that are important to you and your business, to yourself personally, and to yourself as a leader. And so one of them might be starting with, how do we set our net zero priorities? How do you even set them at the very beginning? And make it a priority and talk about how that is going to be aligned with our business objectives and how we're going to operate as a business and get to net zero. What is our plan going to look like? And explain why this is going to be so good for us, and why the investment and the attention and the resources are needed. This is really difficult because if you're in the energy business, you could maybe justify this, but if you're not in the energy business, why would you spend a single second thinking about this? Well, everything from supply chain down to employee well-being to that this is a key question on the minds of your customers makes it a priority for you as a business. So think about how you want to tie these priorities that are outside of the business of profitability into back into the core of your business. And one of the places to be thinking about this is what kind of partnerships you're going to have to make. If you think about digital transformations, we've been going through that for the past 5, 10, 15 years. And digital transformations have been really successful in a lot of organizations, not successful in many, many more. But it's very clear if you have clear goals and objectives, have the right culture and the leadership, you can achieve those goals. We now are facing a different type of transformation around sustainability and climate, but also social and economic transformations too as well. So sustainability transformation is really unique in that you can't just keep it inside of your organization. You can't keep it inside of the department. From day one, it's all encompassing of your organization and also impacts and requires a partnership of people outside of your organization too as well. So looking for partnerships and alliances, private and public ones, are a key part to making sure that these kind of objectives are going to work. And I think the last area around this is to reset your expectations at the individual level as a leader, that this is, again, not trade-offs, but win-wins that you have to look for. And then maybe reset your board members, reset the expectations of your employees and managers, and also the expectations of your customers, that we are going to operate in a different way going forward, that this is not business as usual. This is business unusual on a daily basis. And we need to acknowledge that the world has fundamentally changed and that we as a business and as leaders are fundamentally changing too as well. So, and I'll be diving more into this whole area for the rest of the month in January. I've been looking at stakeholder capitalism now for quite a while, and I've been really intensely studying it for the past 6 months and want to bring forward some of the findings and talk about how do we actually do stakeholder capitalism, ESG, sustainability, all of these things mash into one big bucket. And so next week, I'll be talking and just laying some foundational definitions about what each of these things are. So I see some more comments here. Let's see. We have Knox Keith sharing that in 2023, priorities are growth in new spaces, requires persistence and patience while not guaranteeing success. So very wise, Knox, because you realize that in this space, nothing is guaranteed. So these are a really important ways to be thinking about things. Shamika, you had a quick question here. Are the P's related to the 7 P's of marketing? No, this is completely different. They are the 3 P's of people, planet, and profit. So if you think about the priorities of a business have typically been about maximizing shareholder value, so profits. The other 2 P's broadly are the planet, the environment, and also people, your employees, people in society, equity. So you look at the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, the 17 goals, they talk about eliminating poverty, making sure that education is readily available to people to increase opportunities. Planet is included in those SDGs, those Sustainability Development Goals. And I'll go into those more in the next few weeks. And so M. Morgan here is one of the top priorities at the beginning of the year during uncertain times is to start the year with a culture of optimism and positive attitude to set the tone for the year ahead. Thank you so much, M. Morgan, for that great optimism. I really like that, and we're going to talk about that in the 3rd priority that I have just coming up. Let's see, Shamika, building healthy business relationships, it creates loyalty. I love that's a great point to make and to reemphasize again. that loyalty is so difficult to have, and you can't build it up overnight. It's after repeated building relationships. Robbie, thank you for joining the stream here today. Love talking to Robbie, a good friend of mine. Just saying Happy New Year from Menlo Park. I'm actually in San Diego today, and rainy San Diego. Again, very different climate here than normal, and totally enjoying that too as well. All right, so I think those are the comments for now. Let me talk about the third priority. And this is the one that I think I mentioned is a bit more spiritual. It's a bit more internal. And that is, we need to shift the way we think about how we even think about our objectives. So, most of the time, we start at the year as resolutions and objectives. We say, in 2023, I will do this, I will eat less sugar. Our organization, we will focus on our future customers. We will find a way to become net zero. And the problem with this is you say, I will, I'm going to, and your subconscious as an individual and your subconscious as an organization hears that says, I will do this, but I'm not doing this yet. So I can put it off a little while. Am I taking this seriously? Are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do it, but maybe not right now. I encourage you to think about and rephrase your objectives and your priorities, the things that you want to accomplish this year, the things that you are going to do in the following way. Instead of saying, I will eat less sugar, say, I eat less sugar. Instead of saying, I will serve and I will find and serve my future customers well, I look for and listen to and serve the needs of our future customers. We do this today. Instead of saying we will invest in breakthrough innovations, say we invest in breakthrough innovations. It's a really very subtle change. But if you notice, and you know, words matter. The words that we say to ourselves and to each other really matter. And so, how do we talk about these goals, these priorities? We have to talk about them as if we are already doing them, that we are achieving them. Because the more you set that intention, the more likely it's going to actually manifest. Because you're saying to yourself, I'm not going to do this at some point in the future. I do this today. And I may not do it to the fullest extent possible, but I am doing it. I am starting and I'm going to make it happen. So it's a really simple way to be thinking about it. And it's simply every time you catch yourself saying, I will, I'm going to, one day we'll make this happen. You have to stop and say, wait, let me correct myself. We do this. We are this way. We think this way. We act this way. We are this way. We will be like this. So this is a very different approach. And you hear it oftentimes when leaders are giving their inspirational talks. We will take that hill. We will be courageous versus we take hills. We are courageous. We act in courageous ways. We make courageous decisions. And it's very different when you think about things that way. So that's what I have for today. Again, we also I just love what Knox is saying. It's like, yes, the I am mindset. That's a great way to put it. We are already there. So that's a great way to think about that. And Isabella says, lovely teaching elegance, new start. The language being used here is beyond me, and somehow I perceive that this forum is for large corporations and those having a heavy footprint on the economy. Actually, Isabella, I think in many ways, if you are at a startup, it's even more important that you think this way, because that's the key mindset of startups. Instead of saying, one day we're going to be big, they go, we will be big. They go, we are acting as if we are going to be there already. We are taking on this audacious belief that we can break through in an industry and make a big difference. I mean, think about what startups have to do, the audacity of taking on and starting something from scratch, challenging the incumbents. The greatest mindsets that people have at startups is, we are doing this. We will succeed. And that mindset happens today because we are acting in this way. So I think you can actually definitely apply to the startups and to individuals and leaders up and down throughout the organization. So let's see. I'm just looking here. see any other comments. Again, just a little screen here today for me. Okay, well, good for now. All right, so I just want to just reiterate just a couple things here. Uh, it, I don't want to be pessimistic about 2023 being turbulent and perma crisis. I like to think about it as being pragmatic. And the more we can see the world for what it is, the more we can be active in it and to change it and to influence it and have an impact in the way that we hope is going to make a difference. And I think that's all we can hope for as leaders is to know that we'll put our best foot forward to have that positive impact on the world and on our organizations and on ourselves. So here's the thing is thinking about your goals for 2023. How are you going to shift them, knowing that we're going to have to be more resilient and resilient in a way of looking for those opportunities? And Isabella, my heart goes out to you thinking about, my goodness, that is all startups do. That's all leaders do, is to look for those opportunities to create that change to make the world a better place. And so, how are we going to be different and think about resilience in a different way to look for those opportunities? How are we going to find these win-win opportunities to not just make money and profits and return shareholder value, but to also be able to have an impact on the world around us? And the third thing is, how will you change your mindset? As Knox said, to I am this way, from a I will be to an I am, to an active tense and perspective. So that's what I have for you for today. I wish you all the best for the coming year. And I really look forward to going on this adventure with you in 2023. I get very excited at the beginning of the year, as we all do, about the optimism, as M. Morgan was saying, about how we enter into the new world. So I hope you enter into this January and carry this all the way through to make sure that these resolutions, these priorities, these objectives of yours stick through the rest of the year. And join me next week, January 10th on Tuesday at 9 o'clock. And we'll be talking about and defining what stakeholder capitalism is. This is something I've been really passionate about since a long while now, since 2019, when the Business Roundtable put out a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal and talked about how the purpose of a corporation is no longer to maximize shareholder value, but to maximize stakeholder value. And so I'm dedicating the month of January to talking about, how do you do this? How do we think about that? I don't have even close to all of the answers, but I want to share the thinking and hopefully get some discussion going in terms of how do we actually do all of this. So thank you so much. I wish you all the best with this coming year, and hopefully I will see you next week too. All right, take care. Bye-bye.